Okay, good morning, folks. Quarter after the hour here. I should get rolling, but appreciate you all being here. Hope you had a good night. It's going to be a short day, but I think a busy one. So first order of business this morning, we had drafted up a motion regarding the FIS yesterday, and there's been some edits, and we're going to try and get that up and share it on the screen here and see if we can get a vote around that. Thank you. Heather.
Mr. Chairman, so last night we had the motion put on the table, and then we took it off the table. We tabled it, and then we were going to add to it maybe. And so I tried, probably not very successfully, to capture a few more ideas. I haven't sent that to Joseph yet, but I will. And then I think somebody will need, if people like the additional 3, we had 3 before, added 3. If people like them, somebody's going to have to make an amendment to add them to the motion if we bring it back off the table. I mean, put it back on the table. I don't know. Anyway, okay. Untable it.
Well, I reviewed it this morning. Thank you for sending it. And I didn't see anything that needed to be called out. I made one small edit, but yes, we need to get it in front of the PAB here. So
okay, that's going to take a couple minutes.
Yep. Okay. Peggy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wondered if we wanted to add anything to that motion about the sponsorship from corporations that we talked about yesterday.
I added that.
Oh, you did? Good.
Yeah.
Yes. It's in there. So while they're working on that, I woke up this morning with the thought, and I don't know how many of you went into the comment section, but they were primarily all coming from the sport fishing side of the world, predominantly. And a lot of comments in there are calling out us for being greedy as commercial fishermen, basically. I'm a bit challenged by that. We talked yesterday a little bit about some numbers about how percentage of the population that the sport fishing segment is. It's pretty sizable, but as a percentage of U.S. population, just a fraction. I didn't even go into Canada. Not sure what the sport fishing numbers are there, but I heard, in sitting into the my little visits to the conference board, listening to sport fish sectors stating that they could absolutely not take any more cuts because it was too detrimental to their business model. And we know that our fleets, as a rule, are struggling to keep their head above water, and this, halibut resource is very important to them as well. And there's not a lot of recognition of that. To me, what they don't acknowledge or is not discussed is, and everybody is aware, but nobody wants to talk about, is every pound of fish that's removed from the water in sport harvest is a pound of fish that we don't harvest and doesn't go to market and doesn't supply the people that can't come and afford to come to Alaska and spend thousands of dollars on a fishing trip. A pretty small segment of the population that has that ability. And I'm just wondering, as a group, if folks are on board with the PAB making a statement to that effect. Just noticing that, that the access to the resource for the people that can't come to Alaska and go sport fishing, or Canada can't afford that, but should have access to a fine piece of eating fish when they want to go to the grocery store or the restaurant and get it. That should be as important as well. So I'd like to hear how folks feel about that. Peggy, thank you.
Never sure if Greg's going to raise his hand or adjust his glasses. So I think that's a really good idea. We have done that in the past long ago, when that issue kind of raised its head at first. I think it's really important to remind people of that, especially right now when we're seeing all this from the rec sector.
Thank you, Peggy. Susan?
Good morning. I would think we should state something about the growth in the number of licenses that has been issued and how it's an upward trajectory. It hasn't leveled too.
Okay. Heather?
So maybe, Mr. Chairman, somebody provides the actual language and then we can vote on it. I would like to see the actual language. I'm a little bit unclear on the intent. I don't quite get it.
Okay.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but I don't know what the language is going to be.
Well, what we say in this group and at the conference board, is public. It goes out, the world can read it. And I think, and this is just my personal opinion, I'd like to hear from the Canadian sector as well, that, this is something that people need to be reminded of, that the resource is important to a lot of people.
This is also a political bomb, too, because the rec and sports have tremendous political power behind them. Because if you look at the Kenai, talking salmon now, there's no set netters anymore on the east side, which is just amazing to me. And part of that is because they've rearranged everything else. So we've got to be careful, or not, maybe in the position that we're in, the system that we're in right now, maybe it's good to yell and scream politically with it and not care to a certain degree.
I appreciate that. I think that it probably has a lot to do with the wording. I'm not directly calling out the sports industry, but just, stating the fact that the resource is important to, the world.
That's why Heather's comments are important, to see the wording before.
Yeah. Who's going to help me draft that? Thank you, Peggy. And we would not put it forward until everybody gets a chance to look at the wording, of course. But Bruce, you have any comment on that from the Canadian side?
I don't know enough about it right now. The difference is kind of fractious, it's between there's the US versus the US sports, and the Canada versus the Canada sports, and then there's the Canada versus the US stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I think they have a hard time pushing for more fish until they show some efforts to quantify what they take now. They're pretty vulnerable in stating their catch already. I think there's a lot more criticism could go towards them before they start lobbying for more from the other sectors. That seems to be the position I'm hearing a lot of. I don't know.
Carl and then Peggy.
Yeah, I think, it's directly taking away from the commercial sector. So as processors and buyers of that commercial fish, it is very important. We are supplying it, to your point, to a broader market, so whether people can afford or they don't want to go up and fish for it, and they just want to have access to it, I think it is important.
Thank you. That's what I'm after. Liam?
Yeah, I agree with Carl. I mean, not everybody can afford to fly to Alaska and step on one of these boats and go charter fishing. It's very expensive. I think the more they get, the less the general population gets. And so are we here to feed the world or just a select few wealthy people?
Peggy, Keith, and then Greg.
Yeah, the first time I heard this was a long time ago when I worked for National Fisheries Institute. And they use that phrase, feed the world. That's what this industry does, is feed the world. And it was just a press release that I helped write, probably the first one I did at NFI. That was just hey, by the way, it wasn't aggressive. It wasn't calling anyone out. It was just, this is what we do, sort of thing. And I think, are you suggesting a motion on its own for a recommendation to the commissioners or just part of our report as we
I'm
voted?
just looking, I don't want to make a motion. Well, I guess maybe we could take it to a vote. I'm just looking for approval to make a statement
Okay,
coming from the PAB.
that sounds good.
Yeah. And we would make that statement when we do our report. Keith? Greg?
I think this is the first time Keith isn't taking the microphone, so, but I would be supportive of a carefully worded statement on the PAB's behalf. You've seen it firsthand in Sitka, with king salmon fishing, right? So what are these guys catching now? Catching halibut. And that's fish that could be coming through our plants, coming, like you said, coming to the broader public. And you have to look no further than what they've done, on the sport king front in Southeast. So I would be supportive of a carefully worded statement on our behalf.
Thanks, Greg. That's a good point. I think a lot of the reason that they're so vociferous and present at this meeting is because of the king salmon situation, and their numbers have been reduced, and that they're trying to find ways to, keep the customers happy, and that's halibut.
Yeah, they got to fill their ice chests with something, and it's going to be halibut.
Yeah. Thank you. Bruce?
Does somebody here know more about it than me, that they went over some allocation in Southeast this year? I don't recall that conversation exactly.
Heather?
My understanding is that the rental boat, the non-guided sport sector, went over what they had been expected to get. I don't think they have an allocation that's separate
That's right.
from the sport
That's fine.
charter. So they just went over by quite a bit what everyone expected them to get. So it made
So they
that,
made a forecast? Where do these numbers come from?
I don't know.
The numbers come from voluntary reporting.
Okay.
So somebody came up with a number that they were gonna,
Fish and
Come up
Game,
with-
Fish and Game asks
I see.
people that buy the licenses to fill out a voluntary logbook.
So I spoke to Fish and Games, Kayla, no, what's her name? Works for Doug on the council.
Rachel,
No, the other one.
Carla,
Carla, sorry, Carla, yesterday, and her thought was, because the members of the legislature have been, there's a representative from Sitka who's really wrapping her arms around this. And so Carla thinks that there will be a legislative attempt to categorize and quantify that sector and get it under regulation. So that sort of shifted the focus that I think we talked about yesterday. I didn't know how much the legislature was going to get involved, but it sounds like they are, which would put Alaska Department of Fish and Game kind of front and center for that. Board of Fish front and center for that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not more familiar with it. So what's their ask? What are they asking for? They're being critical of us. Do they have an ask?
They don't have an ask of us.
I see.
Well, they're just not wanting to be reduced. They don't want to see any cuts, whether it's,
Oh, the bag limit thing.
Yeah.
I see.
so something that's important to note, the challenge was the unguided sport group is growing rapidly. And when they first started this, one of the things, because I don't know what the reasoning was. I didn't follow along with the discussion when it was developed, but unguided sport fishermen non-resident have the same catch limit ability as resident Alaskans, which is twice as many fish as a non-resident. So they can go out as a non-resident in an unguided boat and catch twice as many pounds of halibut, or twice as many fish, not pounds, as I think it's one fish a day for guided sport, and it's 2 for unguided. Wow. And how they Why they did that, I don't know, but
And that's per day, no limit on number of days?
no, there's a limit on yearly catch, and I honestly apologize, but I don't remember what that is, but it might be 3 fish or something. We could find that out pretty quick. Peggy.
And I believe Forrest Braden is going, and I'm sorry, Bruce, I didn't understand who you were asking about what they're asking of us. The charter group is asking, Forrest Braden will make a motion to to be compensated for that number. It was 400,000 pounds, and now they've said it's not that much. It was 200 or something. So they don't know how much yet. And when I say they, I mean the state. So I'm not sure where that will go, but they're at least Forrest representing the charters is very assertive to, we should be compensated for that. We lost a lot because of that.
Mark, you had a comment?
Just looking at this, the sheet, the final is 102% for the guided recreational fishery in 2C. At 734,000 pounds.
For guided.
For guided, yeah.
Is unguided in there?
No, it's not represented at all.
So they went 2% over their allocation.
Yeah, and the commercial is 94% in 2C.
The
And
number that was being batted around for the underguided was 400,000 pounds. And then there was talk that wasn't right. And then I heard last night, I didn't hear a number, but I'd heard that they reaffirmed that was closer to accurate than what they thought.
and with the combination, you're getting up there pretty high.
Yes,
So
500,000 pounds.
kind of remarkable with it. And in 2B, it was 504,000 pounds for recreational fishery at 74% taken. So
One of the arguments we hear in Canada all the time, I'm sure the Alaska side's no different, is that the contribution to the economy of a pound of fish in the sports sector is higher than the contribution of a pound of the commercial sector. You know, we hear that all the time. And we're arguing with a whole bunch of kind of subjective data here, right? I mean, if they want something to change, they got to come back with a little bit more substance on some of this stuff. And they got to clean their house too. Their house is a mess.
Okay. Well, I don't know if we need any more discussion on this. I just think it's important as a group of processors that we note that the resource is important to a lot of people besides just the sports sector. Go ahead.
I've grown up as an East Side set netter in Cook Inlet, starting in 1981 with my family. And all they've done is taken away from us our time, our ability to harvest sockeye. And I think that, you know, it's important for us to dig in, make a stance, carefully worded, aligned with Canadians, aligned with our stewardship and our sustainability of the fishery, because there's a lot of power on the other side of the table, and it's important that we're united and we're firm on how we manage our business, because it's important and a lot of people rely on it. And there's a handful of people that have a lot of money that seem to get their way. So stewardship, alignment with our brothers in Canada, the sustainability of our fishery, I think it's very important to hold firm on what we're doing, because it's very important.
Thank you. Yeah, that was great. And, you know, recognition of the challenge that the resource is in right now, you know, it's becomes all that more important. Go ahead, Heather.
That is well said. It's an allocation issue, and they're always difficult and so political. Are we going to recommend to the commissioners that they make a statement of some kind, or are we just making our own statement that doesn't go any further?
I would certainly like the commissioners to make a statement. I don't know if we can, where that will go. We could include it as an ask. Carl?
Didn't it sort of tie into the recommendation that we sort of come up with yesterday that we're pushing the commissioners to tell the council to deal with it? Essentially.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Heather.
Yes, it does. It sounds from what Peggy said that Fish and Game in Alaska is thinking about dealing with it themselves instead of taking it to the council, which is interesting. So maybe we put that motion, bring that motion again and sort of finesse it a little bit and add these sentiments that we've heard from people and say either Fish and Game, Board of Fish / ADF&G or the council or both should take this up immediately and discuss the allocation of those fish, because that's what it is. It's an allocation thing. Something like that.
Just a question with it. Is there inner fighting between guided and non-guided? Like between each other, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the biggest fight.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, massive.
But who's fighting who? I don't get that. I mean, if it's unguided, is there an organization of unguided people? Dudes? Dudettes?
Lodge owners,
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. I was a little
cruise
confused.
people.
How do we harness,
Okay.
how do we leverage that? So if guides are pissed off at non-guides, we align with the guides and leverage that consternation, leverage that to benefit us, to strengthen our position.
Yeah, because we feel that I would think that they would respect and account for removals properly,
Right.
how the
And that's
commercial
more,
fleet
that's
is
more
responsible
alignment,
for
that's,
it.
that's more stewardship, that's more sustainability to our resource.
Yeah.
Because you gotta believe that the unguided, whatever number they're telling you of what they harvest, it's freaking bullshit, right? It's gotta be.
Well, my question is, what are the penalties too for unguided? If you get slapped in the hand, but if you're a
It's a
commercial
number.
fisherman? Yeah,
It's a $500,000, people, right?
Yes, well, 400,000, yeah. Well, that's sport licenses in its entirety, so that
Okay.
includes guided and unguided.
Okay, so either way, it would be interesting to show some alignment to further strengthen our position.
I think Greg can extrapolate out what he sees and
Yeah.
we can kind of project it to other areas.
Thanks, Joe.
Mr. Chair, those 400 some odd thousand, that's resident, and non-resident?
Yeah, that was
That's a
total
combination.
sport licenses.
And that's
yes.
everything. I mean,
Yeah.
salmon, okay.
No, that was non-resident, I believe. I'll have to go back and look at my search.
Non-resident.
That was non-resident. Yeah, that's so that would include fly fishermen. I mean, that includes everybody that comes to Alaska and buys a sport fishing license, but non-resident. Greg?
I mean, I guess I'll just close with this. I mean, I'm listening to Greg yesterday saying, he's pulling out 5 bodies in Yakutat. I mean, it's a safety issue. We banty about, the start and stop dates of our fishery, based on, for the safety of the fleet. And we've had boats go down because, they're fishing, later into the season. I mean, it's, common sense would tell you when 5 people are dying in Yakutat in one summer, like who's, 4? It's 4 summers. Okay. Well, still, I mean, it's a lot. I must not have been listening. My apologies. But
Keith and then Mark.
Safety usually trumps all things, right? So I would just say,
Yeah.
I would point out. It doesn't want me to speak, so. I would point out that it's a safety issue for starters, and with what Jeff said about sustainability and the preservation of our fishery, I think that, the safety issue is a big deal. You're giving these guys coming in I was up there, they would have rented me a boat. Of course, I know how to drive a boat, but that was pretty easy to go in there and give my credit card. So I think you should definitely include that in any statement we make.
Okay, thank you. Liam?
Just a question about the sports fishing licenses in Alaska. Is any of the funds of the purchase go towards the sustainability of the stocks or anything like that? Is that a possible funding source or something to be floated?
Fish and Game would probably say yes. I mean, they used the funds from that for
There's
programs.
nothing IPHC could do to work directly to try and use it as a, I don't know, funding source, maybe, I know in Canada, when you buy salmon licenses, you have two choices. You could donate to the, the T-Buck Suzuki and another one. So I just thought maybe there's an extra kind of levy or something that could be put on a sports license.
Mark?
Mr. Chairman, one of the things I wanted to bring up to back up what Greg and Keith were saying is that when we put IFQs in place, two major reasons for that. One was safety, because it was stupid derby fisheries and how many people we lost. And the second was the economy of the fishery, both of which have been very successful over the last few years. So that should be reinforced with these, again, going back to Darwin's theories of knuckleheads and things like that. But the recreation fishery should have as much safety factors involved as the commercial does. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Good. Peggy, you've captured the safety aspect put into that wording. Yes, just noting, just checking to make sure that you're capturing the safety aspect. Okay, great. Okay, well, it's probably enough commentary around that idea. It sounds like we'll get something drafted up and share it and get a vote on it before we present it. So this is, thank you, Heather, for working on this. This is our latest draft of the motion that we came up with yesterday for the FIS. So it's up on the screen in front of you. Folks want to read through it, suggest any changes, or if they're good with it. And go ahead, Heather.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think first we've got to put it back on the table. We got to move
Oh,
to
yeah, thank
put it
you.
back on the table.
I'll make a motion to open this back up,
Second,
put it back on the table.
I second that motion.
Okay. Discussion.
Well, we probably should vote, but I don't care that much.
I think we need to probably review it before we vote.
No
No,
opposition
it's just a
to getting it on the table.
put it on the table.
Oh,
Then
okay. Is there anybody that is opposed to?
okay. So this is the introduction, and in red is the change from what you saw yesterday, added by the chairman to indicate the reason why we're doing this, why we're talking about this. So ideally, there would be a motion to amend to add that phrase. And then going down, the first three, 1, 2, and 3, were on the table yesterday. And 4, 5, and 6, if you'd roll it up a little bit, Joseph. 4, 5, and 6 are my attempt since yesterday to add some of the other ideas that people were talking about. Number 4, it should be in red as well because these are new. Number 4 is what Bruce was talking about, I think. So Bruce, if you want to change that wording, you should amend what's up there. I think that kind of, in brief, captures your concept. And then 5 is something that people were talking about, fundraising efforts of various kinds. People could expand on that if they want to amend the motion by adding that idea. And then number 6 is something that people were talking about sort of as a sidebar, the idea of, I think that was your idea, Mr. Chairman, to have a committee of former contractors. I think you mean people who have
Done the charters.
done the charters, yeah, and staff, and maybe stakeholders, though there's a little bit of a sticky thing there as to stakeholders suggesting rules that they then must follow. So there might be a conflict of interest there. So stakeholders that are still in the running to have their boats chartered might not be appropriate. So that's just my, suggested language that you could mess around with. So if people wanted to amend the motion, they would need to amend it to include that phrase in red in the intro, and then these 4, 5, and 6 ideas that were added since yesterday.
Thank you, Heather.
I'm happy with 4. It's fine.
Okay,
It's close enough.
good.
I think Keith was the one that brought up 5 last year.
Was.
He's here today.
Keith, do you have any comments on number 5? We kind of, I'll take as much blame as anybody in just dropping the ball on this and not following through on it. I honestly expected to maybe have the secretariat kind of push the conversation once we decided that this was a good direction to go and, develop a program. I guess we didn't make that obvious enough. And I don't know if that would be something to throw into the wording, or if this is just going to be all on us to deal with.
Okay, so, yeah, we did comment about that. And what I think is there's, we're all dealing with all these associations where we're all members of, and everyone has their hand out, so to speak. So what we found is I was on the board of AFDF, and we hired an outside consultant that's actually is a professional specifically trained to do fundraising for industries. And she's done very well. And we all are busy with our daily lives. But I believe that there's an opportunity there for sure. And I think we need to appoint someone and pay them to do it. And it rather be a percentage of the funds, which is normal. Usually it's 10%, or whatever that number is. But I think that's what has to happen there, because we're too busy building brands and buying fish and dealing with all that. We can't get into fundraising, but the idea is strong. All those Grendons and CMARs and LFS and all those people that actually enjoy all the business that our fishermen give them should also be participating in supporting our fishery in this manner. I wanted to tell you on number 4, though, Alaskan Leaders Out. Our surveys, we do the state survey, and our boats are busy with fishing cod, so year round. It's a good idea.
Thank you, Keith. How does the PAB? I like that idea. I mean, and I'll just go back to my earlier comment that I didn't jump all over this, and the fact was I'm just pretty busy, and it was just another thing to take on. I like the idea of hiring somebody to take charge of this, and let's see how the PAB feels about that. Carl.
Wouldn't the IPHC have the staff or resource to go knock on doors rather than hiring an outside party to take a fee from it?
Well, you'd like to think so, but that'd be a question for David.
Right, fair.
Commenting on that, Carl, they actually called me, David did, and I think I spoke to Kayla as well. I think that it's a good idea, and I think it's valid, and it'll work. There's all kinds of contact lists, but somebody needs to actually make it their job to do it every day until it's funded, because there's no way. We're all busy. Everybody at this table is here, supporting the company that they work for. So it's very hard you just have to hire. After all the experience I've had some fundraising, you just have to have a specific person. They need to know what to ask, and they need to know the soft points on a potential sponsor. So that's my opinion. I think AFDF, Norm, someone could send an email. I could do it, but to Christy Clement, she hired a person, and that person was incredible. She raised a lot of money for AFDF. I don't know what they paid her, but that'd be something to start with.
Yeah, would appreciate getting that contact information from you, Keith. Thank you. Susan?
Thank you. Have they ever looked into leasing a boat, hiring a skipper and crew?
I don't know that.
Leasing a boat? Just dedicated boat like the Christiana that's probably still for sale? You know,
Peggy?
That suggestion and others probably belongs in number
A new one.
6, or I really like the idea of leaning on people who have done this, seen the places that can be improved and things that really can't be improved, and maybe workarounds with those. Other new suggestions, coming up with other new suggestions. So if we are at a point where we could start wordsmithing, and maybe that does deserve its own number, leasing a boat, because it is pretty fundamental. Yeah. So add that as number 7.
If you, Mr. Chairman, ideally, people would make a motion and say, let's add this language. So that would be the way to do it, so that then everybody would know that that was what was happening. Like Peggy could make a motion, for example, to add the language that's currently on the screen to the motion, and those would be amendments, and it would be then amended. And then you could make a motion to say, let's do another one to say, investigate the feasibility of leasing a boat as a dedicated survey vessel, or something like that.
So, Mr. Chairman, if the maker of the motion would accept a friendly amendment, I would like to add a number 7, which says, what was the word you used?
Investigate the feasibility.
Investigate the feasibility of leasing a survey boat for the full season.
Can we go back up a couple paragraphs? Where I'm going here is I think that adding that, I don't disagree with the idea at all, and I appreciate the comment. I just want to keep this short and simple. And I think we're getting overcomplicated, and I think determining the optimum survey design sort of covers it, and then having a meeting with the operators, or having a group discussion, forming a group to discuss this with the current charter operators and staff to work on that design. Probably those are things that are going to be discussed, right? And I don't know that we need to get into every idea of how this thing should be designed. I just think that we just don't want to get overly complicated.
So drop that amendment and assume that idea, along with many others, would be included in number 6.
Yes.
I'm good with that.
So no 7 is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah, I think it's long enough. That's my opinion.
I'm happy with that.
I'm happy to take input from the PAB if they think something different. Okay, not hearing any more conversation, can we get somebody to make a motion to accept the amendment?
Sorry,
Peggy?
I did have one other suggestion on Bruce's idea. So that's number 4.
Yes.
And we've written it out as investigate cost effectiveness of using a freezer longliner to survey multiple areas over a long period, freezing the fish Survey staff would need to be on board. Fish would be taken to market in Vancouver, Seattle. Vessel would receive 100% of the revenue. That was really that's a short description of that long description that Bruce gave us, kind of off the cuff, really articulate, I thought. And I was trying to summarize it in my mind as he spoke. And so I'll just read this rather than what we've got up there. Shift the business model for charters. They would take more risk and keep more of the proceeds. The Secretariat would pay less for the service and maintain or increase the level and quality of scientific data gathered. Because basically that's what it is, I think, if I'm understanding what Bruce's idea was, to just shift that to, instead of 90-10, something different. And they would take more risk, but they would get more money for it. Secretariat would have less money to pay out. They would maintain the scientific level that they have or make it better. And they wouldn't have to pay as much for it because they don't get the proceeds of the bycatch or the halibut caught.
I don't disagree with that thought process. I do think that keeping the idea, making the statement about using a freezer longliner is important because I don't think that's something that's really been considered in the past. That's a big change. I also am in favor of the idea. I think I like it, but I think it should be included.
Okay, go ahead, Heather.
So, Mr. Chairman, if Peggy's making these as friendly amendments to the maker of the motion, which is me,
Yes.
I would prefer the more specific language because I don't think people will understand the less detailed concept that Peggy's suggesting. While I mean, I didn't understand what Bruce was talking about for a long time. And if it hadn't been a really detailed explanation, I don't think I ever would have got it. So that's just me. But anyway, this is really prescriptive. I mean, this is really telling the commission that they need to change the way they do things. And that's a tough thing to say, period. So, I mean, they're not going to like it particularly, probably, is my guess. I'm just being straightforward. But, you know, these are suggestions coming from really seasoned industry members, and it's important to put it on the table. That's what I think.
I agree.
So, but yeah, I think we have to be pretty clear as to what we mean in that particular section. Otherwise, I don't think anybody will get it and they'll just gloss over it. I mean, that's just my thought. So I do not accept that language as a friendly amendment, if that's okay.
That's fine. One of the things I'm thinking of, though, when we submit this list is number 4 very likely would be work in concert with number 6. Both of them are looking at creating a new paradigm.
That's true.
And that's basically what we're hoping the commission will get. We want to really think outside the box. And I know the staff has already tried that on a lot of specifics. Actually, maybe Kayla would have a thought on what would be most effective.
Would you care to comment? I'm not going to put your point. You can abstain if you like. I'm fine with that.
I can talk to it too.
Okay.
Peggy, could you just restate your question on what you'd like my comment on?
Of course.
Sorry.
And I don't mean to put you absolutely on the spot at all. But I think what we're really grappling with here is whether to be super prescriptive or to talk about how important it is to think outside the box, come up with creative solutions for problems that have not been able to be solved for a long time. So yeah, this is a really subjective thing, sorry. But do you have any leaning one way or another if we should say very specifically, for instance, the freezer longliner idea, include that in this? Or just leave it at, we need a new paradigm. We'd like to have a group of industry members work with the Secretariat to come up with some possibilities and, go from there, or do both, or? No, it's a lot, but.
Phew. I think what is presented on here is, I would, from my point of view, is
Yeah.
sufficient
Works.
to try to move forward and try to explore ideas. Although I think even just stating number 6 as like a kind of refer to those that have experience and potentially trying to create this committee would also potentially just be sufficient as well. So I don't want to say too much at the
That's
moment,
helpful.
but yeah,
Thank
but
you.
I think what's on here is sufficient. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kayla.
Yeah.
Appreciate your comment. I have a question for Bruce. How many former contractors and current contractors do you think there are? What's that pool look like for people that potentially could be involved in this discussion?
That's exactly what I was going to say. We can't even get enough charter boats to do it the way we're doing it now. All it really needs to be is any simple language. To initiate a 40,000 foot look at this thing. I mean, there's some massive cost building blocks and boat availability that will probably preclude this from even being an opportunity. I mean, it just needs a flyby, I think, to even find out if there is a boat that fits that description. I mean, like Keith says, this is the high revenue season for every single boat on the ocean. And we can't get any charter boats to apply for the charters for exactly that same reason. So to take a boat that's far superior to any of the boats we're using for charters right now and ask them to set aside as probably as 3 or 4 most productive months of the year, we're going to have to take a pretty high blush at this thing. And I think that captures enough to initiate people looking at it. It won't take long to decide to show whether we should dig deeper or not.
Thank you, Bruce. Heather?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think what we're trying to do is let the commissioners know and the secretariat that this industry cares about how we do this because it's so important to the future of this resource. And I think your addition in the intro, Mr. Chairman, is a good addition because they can tell from this language, this whole thing, that these people around this table put a lot of thought into it. And that's because we care about it and we want it to be better. And we want to know more from the surveys. We want the surveys to be fair, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's the message it sends, and I think it's important that we send it. So that's just my final thought on the whole thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if the PAB was willing to cover the cost of the outside marketing company like AFDF did for their campaign to generate the revenue from, Alaska Cargo or Grundon's or any of these companies to build a pool of money to support what we need, our data? I'd be curious to know what was spent for that company. It's probably not a lot of dough. And I'm an owner operator. I'd be more than willing to share in that cost because I think it's money well spent. Whatever that number is, I don't think it's a lot. And what we need is data, right? And to get the data, we got to figure out how to support the vessels to go out and survey survey our resource. And if we spend a little money in advertising, it helps us, right? And it further shows our stewardship and sustainability and what we're trying to do here. I don't think it'd be a lot of money, and I think it'd be money well spent if we all covered it, or at least explored it.
Keith?
I have a comment on that, Jeff. There was I have some numbers when we were in Vancouver. Someone had numbers that it costs those boats to go and do the survey in each of the locations. I think we have that somewhere.
Yes.
And I think it was like, am I wrong, 15,000 a trip or something like that? Anyway, I just texted the office, our ops guy, and he said, it doesn't, the survey fish, we do the survey for state, and it said here, it doesn't pay for itself. It says the survey does not catch enough fish to pay for itself. So big boats like our big longliners wouldn't work. Anyway, on the freezer part. But I think those numbers we talked about, somebody had numbers last time on what the surveys cost in each location. I remember that, I think. Am I wrong?
Yeah, we have the details that involve what we're paying each charter to complete each charter area, and then, or excuse me, what we're paying each vessel. And then there's the steady expenses such as like staff, both headquarters and field staff. I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but it is available to an extent.
Well, I think that Jeff, I think if you could, can we see what that is, Norm? Is that something that's, the committee here could look at all the math on this and?
Yeah, we can, I think, Kayla, how available is that information from a, high level view, not break? I mean, we have a total cost of the survey program that's pretty accessible, right?
Yes, and contract awards for every charter region is publicly available on our website as well. I'd have to look into what is shareable as far as like staffing expenses and whatnot as well, though. But certainly, like the lump sum payments that we're paying each vessel are readily available on our website.
Okay.
There's one more thing we could, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'll just kind of make the comment, like, to some of the stuff like, funding it or fundraising or, whether it be maybe a levy per pound, at the dock that goes to the organization to help fund the surveys is a good idea. But on the flip side, I don't trust that the money would be used properly.
It's got to be transparent.
Has to be transparent. And I think that there's some questions that we all have on, how the current budget in the organization is being used effectively. And I wouldn't want to see that money being misused. So.
So how do we,
Good comment.
how do we keep control? Or have some control?
Something.
Do I have an easy answer? No, there is not one.
No.
You're the chair, Norm. You're supposed to know this.
Yeah, right. Mark,
Has there been any discussion in the conference board about this at all? Oh, there has. And what did they come up with?
What I've heard from the conference board is people who have gone out to 4B and 4A and were hired to do a survey had a lot of trouble with weather, with crew, with finding a place to deliver, and the cost was not sufficient to cover the expenses. And then they would take a break and go fishing, and they would make 4 times that amount. So I've over the years, I've talked to other people who have been involved in the survey. I think 4B, maybe you can weigh in on this, is pretty difficult because of all of those issues. So having, I think CBFSA has done the survey a couple of times, and they're there, they work there, they live there. So it makes a big difference. So I think they're talking about the same things that we are, but they've got the people who really have penciled everything out and know the costs to talk about why it's difficult.
Well, the costs and everything else, I mean, but I'm talking about generating more revenue in order to run the surveys,
Sorry.
contributions. That's what I'm talking about.
I don't know of those conversations from the CB. They could have been having them. I just haven't
Yeah.
heard them.
Heather?
Mr. Chairman, I shared the motion, the potential motion with the chairman of the conference board. And she had a couple of comments. So it sounds like they're talking about it, but I have no idea what they're doing, whether they're doing a motion or not. I will say that when CBSFA has participated in the survey, it costs CBSFA money. And last time we did it, we basically donated the cost of a portion of the stations that needed to be done. We actually added stations, is my understanding, because we care so much about doing the survey in that area, and nobody can afford to do it, is basically what it amounts to. There just needs to be an infusion of funding in order to do the surveys as they should be done, period.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. And I don't think I think we all know that that's a cost negative program at this time, mostly due to, the stock situation with the fish and lack of pounds, and cost of doing business. I don't know that needs to be included in here. I think that the idea of hiring somebody to locate funding from other sources is a good idea. I haven't heard much pushback from folks here about exploring that idea. It would be really good to get a handle on what the cost of that would be. So I think we should get through this motion, get it voted on, and move forward. So I would ask for a motion from somebody to accept the edit that's on here, and then we can vote on the motion itself.
I just had one more.
Mr. Chairman, I think that Peggy suggested that the language that's being added be added as a friendly amendment, and I would accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, good. So then we don't have to vote.
What's there now?
Yes. Is everybody ready to go to a vote on this? Changes? Peggy?
Just to finish the conversation about the price, I did find the price on the website. So contract payments ranged from $48,000 to $135,000 US dollars for a charter region in Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia. In Alaska, payments ranged from $35,000 to $140,000.
Thank you, Peggy. Appreciate you pulling that up.
I got one quick last one. Sorry, Norm. If that's okay?
Yeah.
I think that we're recommending to investigate it. All this sort of stuff falls under the category of investigate it, right? And I also think realistically, they pay all those fees out, they get the fish revenue, and you add it all up, it costs them a lot of money. I'm 100% certain there's no cost neutral solution that's going to pull a couple $100,000 out of the hat. This could possibly, if it's a great success, cost the IPHC less than it costs them now. But it's not going to live off fish money. There's no fantasy like that that's coming in there. They're going to be paying somebody to do this still, but it's going to cost them all the fish money plus some. But I mean, that all falls under investigation. If we recommend to investigate it, we don't need to sit here and speculate it, right? That's my opinion.
Could we see?
Yeah, exactly. Investigate it, right?
Bruce, that being said, do you think that this motion as it stands
Yeah,
indicates that?
I think we don't need to add much. It's the word investigate, right? Everything else falls under that, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Yes.
I don't think I'm seeing the whole motion on the screen.
Okay.
You're not. It's too long. Yes. Yeah, can you scroll down? Yeah.
it or not.
Are any opposed? Hearing none, we'll pass it as it stands. No.
Mr. Chair, I think if it's a recommendation, it needs to have a vote.
If it's a recommendation.
Yeah. So it's a unanimous vote?
It is, yes. So I just reached out to Bruce, emailed me this morning, and I hadn't responded to him yet, asking for 5 minutes to come and talk to the board about the FIS design and costs. And so this is, I reached out to him just a little bit ago to see if I could get him in the room. He said it'd only take 5 or 10 minutes, so. Or David, sorry, Bruce. Okay, here's a reply. Okay, he's busy. He can't get in here for a while, but he does want to come and talk to us about the FIS. So, okay. Moving on. Mortality limits and TCY. Can we pull up the TCY presentation from Ian?
Is this what you need?
Yeah, this will work. We need to start out the conversation here about setting our catch limits. And I think that we probably, I don't know, is there discussion that needs to be had? I think everybody in the room is pretty set on, or pretty aware of what's going on next door on both sides of the aisle. So we probably should have some conversation around that. Go ahead, Heather.
Mr. Chairman, it seems sensible to me to have a very short break while the delegations from each country caucus very briefly. I think very briefly.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 10:15 now. We want to reconvene at 10:30? Okay, folks, we're going to reconvene here. We have a guest, John Mueller from the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council, and here is advising on the conference board. We're asking him to provide a little perspective on where he stands, as approach in bycatch and the trawl fishery. Thanks, John.
Well, thank you for the invite again. So John Moeller, I'm originally from Dutch Harbor on Alaska. I'm actually a recovering crab fisherman, and did a little bit of time serving 3 different Alaska governors and sit on the council now. And so I just want to make it very clear that I am not speaking here on behalf of the council. I'm speaking as an individual that sits on the council, and I've been having lots of discussions, been participating in the Halibut Commission process for probably 30 years. And, you know, it's always interesting, you know, for 30 years we've been hearing, or at least 20 of these 30 years, we've been hearing about, you know, the Canadians' concerns with bycatch in the Bering Sea. We tried to address some of that issue with a program called ABM, Abundance-Based Management. You know, unfortunately, we have a legal system in America as well that, you know, it allows stakeholders to challenge some of the actions that we make at the council, and it's really frustrating when you spend 4 or 5 years of your life creating a very public process, create a program of which then gets challenged. And I've been involved in a number of those challenges, which is quite frankly frustrating when, but nonetheless, you know, I've had a number of conversations with our Canadian friends across the border here relative to bycatch. We have a discussion happening in Alaska like I've never seen relative to the bycatch as a whole. We have, I think, 13 Republican governor candidates in this next race, and a number of Democrats, and for the most part, the lion's share of these candidates have taken an anti-trawl platform. Now, you know, there's a lot of problems with having that hard line of just absolutely no trawl. Quite frankly, it kills many of our coastal villages if you take out some of the trawl components of fish plants, and then where do you sell your halibut? Where do you sell your blackcod? Where do you sell your crab? And unfortunately, we're dealing with maybe a under-informed public when it comes down to some of the nuances and the throughput that some of our fish plants actually need to have to even buy some of these smaller fisheries. So it's been quite an educational process, and I try to do my best to have these conversations with whoever is willing to have them, because there is a balance when it comes down to it. But back to we have a bycatch issue coming up on chum bycatch for the pollock fishery in February at the North Pacific Council, and that is its final action. Very complicated, you know, alternatives in front of us that have different consequences and different results. So we'll see where that goes in February. It's a very polarizing situation with particularly the Alaska Native population that lives on the Yukon and Kuskokwim River, because right now they're having zero opportunity, you know, for subsistence fish, and the smokehouses are empty. So it's a very heartfelt situation that we're dealing with. But again, we're trying to balance what we have in front of us here with that. We also have some action coming down the pike relative to bottom contact with the pollock trawl industry. We have some other action in front of the council that has to do with you know, the definition of pelagic trawl. So there's a number of actions in front of the council. And, you know, I think the other thing that I mentioned in the smaller group was I've never seen the state of Alaska on the state legislature side. We've got numerous proposals of the Alaska Board of Fish right now that are I would consider anti-trawl. And the reason that's taken a lot of, gotten quite a bit of attention, and the boards of fish is going to address these in March, at the March meeting in Anchorage. But, you know, some of the unintended consequences for proposals like this are the harm it creates for local coastal Alaska communities in Alaska. On top of that, we have federal fisheries. In particular, to give you an example, we have a cod for Pacific cod. We got a trawl program in the BSAI, of which about 12% of that is allocated to the Western Aleutians. Well, there's a program, or there's a proposal in front of the Board of Fish that's gonna shut down state water inside of 3 miles for all trawl. And the problem with that is we've created a program, allocated fish for the benefit of communities in the Aleutians, and it's a trawl program. And a share of that trawl program is caught, or that codfish is caught in what we call the parallel fishery, which is federal fishery caught inside of 3. So it's somewhat problematic when it comes down to that. And to top it off, the data shows that the bycatch in the Aleutians for groundfish is about 12% of the bycatch in the Bering Sea. So as an advocate for ADAC and the Aleutians, I've always been a proponent of moving more fish to cleaner grounds, right? Haven't always had success with that, and we battled it out in court and whatnot. But so I guess my main message here is, to our Canadian friends, is there has never, in my view, been more energy and more focus on bycatch in my history in commercial fishing in Alaska going on right now in the different venues. State of Alaska, I've taken numerous calls from state legislators. I've had numerous governor candidates coming to me about, how do we solve some of this stuff, right? And like always, we wouldn't have it, and I wouldn't be here talking to you about it if it was an easy fix. And we still have it. But I would tell you that, at least from my perspective, that I have never seen this level of interest in bycatch as a whole, and that includes halibut. So I've tried to describe. Maybe I've left some out. Heather, remind me if I've left some of the examples out in terms of some of the stuff that's going on in the state of Alaska, and as an individual on the council that we're addressing.
Thanks, Johnny. That was awesome. I think that one of the pieces of the puzzle that I'm seeing develop is the battle for the hearts and minds of the sport sector. The sport sector for salmon and halibut. The trawl interests are very interested in having the sport guys on their side. And, that there's a lot of that discussion going on. Obviously, people who catch fish for sport are just as interested in the health of the resource and having the fish around as the commercial fishermen are. So that's usually the perspective that they've taken. But, it's an interesting dynamic that's going on.
Well, there's no doubt, and thank you for bringing that up, Heather. I think, in one way you can't blame them, right? I'm looking for allies anywhere I can find them as well. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. But we have, we have different groups that are joining forces, and when it comes down to this stuff, and it just, I guess what it does from a positive perspective, in my view, is it continues to elevate the conversation, and it really truly puts even more pressure on individual council members like myself to that we need to take some action. So, anyway, that's really my perspective. I have a client. I have a consulting company, but I have a client that actually is. We were on the losing side of a lawsuit when it came down to moving fish out west and whatnot. But at any rate, it's a fairly dynamic process, as you guys can well imagine, and very fluid. I guess the positive side with the council is nobody can really claim that they didn't have an opportunity to say their piece at it. I mean, when we spend 4 or 5 years trying to address a single agenda item, and you have 2,000 and 3,000 page documents you got to get through, you certainly have ample time to get through it.
John, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I would note that for those that are not fans or on social media much, that this is getting a lot of attention from outside of industry. Now there's a group called Stop Trawl Bycatch on Facebook. That group has over 50,000 members now. It's very active. There's new members and comments every day. So it's got a lot of attention. So it's, you know, as you would expect from people that don't know anything about the industry, there's some pretty far out commentary that happens from time to time and not a lot of accuracy, but it's garnered a lot of attention and it's none favorable. So it's a pretty big deal.
If I could, I'm willing to take any questions if you want, Mr. Chairman, as well. But if I could just add a little thing from a personal perspective here relative to this process. I think all of us, if not many of us, get extremely frustrated. There's probably more damn politics that are involved in this process. But I get to raise my hand as a council member and swear to an oath that we will abide by the national standards that are outlined in the Magnuson-Stevens Act when it comes down to. And so I got to take that extremely serious, and we are bound by, by the scientific data that we have in front of us and the best science we have in front of us. And so one of the frustrating pieces and that in this process, and one of the reasons why my young son, I don't know, he probably didn't want to hear Dad talk. He's probably disappeared, but he's 20 years old. He's got $250,000 invested in a commercial fishing operation that he's doing. He wants to be a fisherman, but I can't rightfully help him fund, the level of halibut that he would need to fulfill his and make his portfolio complete in Southeast Alaska, because this process is a very difficult process for me to say, okay, son, it's fine for you. This business model works. And part of the problem I have is, and I've talked to some of the fellow Canadians about this, is, in Area 4B, and quite frankly, my friends on the American side are just as guilty when it comes down to this as anybody. When we start funding other areas, when we don't have the science in Area 4, in Area 4B in particular, we don't have the science, and we're moving freaking cards around like this fish is just willy-nilly, right? And to me, I'm too damn old to truly worry about it, but to me, it's all about that next generation. That's why I spent 3 months of my life on the North Pacific Council. It is about that next generation and the stability of the resource for me. And when we're just willy-nilly moving fish around out of 4B to fund other areas in the state, it's just like, is that truly the responsible thing to do here? And quite frankly, as I told our political appointment from the Trump administration, I said, listen, this process is holding back the next generation of Alaskans, in our case, from expanding their portfolio, because I can't really feel good about allowing him to buy $250,000 in halibut in 2C given this process. So I say that. I've been advocating for decades. We got to freaking put more freaking resources towards sound science when it comes down to this. And you guys remember the old man Clem Tillian from the years that he spent in this process, how we all believe that that's a different fish out there. And for us to just willy-nilly move it around and fund other areas because we're leaving it in the water is just, in my view, irresponsible until we have the science to say we can do that. So I appreciate you guys letting me rant on that one. Since you called me off the street to come in and talk to you, I felt I can do that.
Thank you, John. Any questions for John who's here?
I got a question.
Let me off easy. Oh, shoot.
Don't you move. Talk about the difference of, we all know the trawlers are a little bit under siege right now. Talk about the difference between the bottom contact ones and midwater. What's going on? Are they being separated in this lobbying, or anyways, can you just talk about that?
So as a council member, as an individual, thanks for the question, by the way, there's little doubt that there's different categories of harvesters when it comes down to this. There's no doubt. And the way I like to describe it is, I talked to, in fact, I got a meeting with some of the pollock shore-based trawlers, catcher boats here at noon. And I described it. I says, hey, you trawlers, for the midwater pollock guys, I says, there's no doubt the crosshairs are on you as a whole, as I described earlier. I mean, the state's going after you, the governor candidates, everyone. And then I meet with the Amendment 80 folks, which were the hard on bottom, the flatfish, trawl sector. And I say, hey, this is what I told the pollock guys. You got the crosshairs on you, pollock guys. I said, you Amendment 80 guys, those crosshairs are freaking neon lights and blinking. and I think that's that's just, my perspective and what I told them. I think it's probably a fair. I don't think the Amendment 80 guys would disagree with my assessment of where I see the public in terms of interaction with us. Is that helpful?
Any other questions, comments? Carl?
Just quick, you mentioned that the Lucian trawl bycatch is it managed better? Like, how is their number different? Like, you mentioned 12%. It seems like it's like a low number compared to other trawling that's going on in the Bering Sea. Are they using different techniques, or is it just?
That's a good question, and I really appreciate you picking up on me just dropping numbers like that, right? Because there is some nuances behind that, right? And one being the fishery is considerably smaller for one, but that doesn't affect the percentage, right? But there is less there's less resources in terms of bycatch resources. There's less crab out there. There's less halibut out there than might be aggregated in the Bering Sea and for some of those fisheries. So that has that directly contributes to it. But being an advocate for moving more fish out west, because that's what I've always done, and I think it's the right thing to do. I think we have a resource out there in terms of some species that justifies my argument to move more fisheries out there. The economics from a harvester standpoint, the economics is considerably different, and that's why we're leaving so much fish in the water. It just doesn't, and so on and so forth. But it has to do with the different biomasses, and they're considerably much smaller geographical area in terms of fishable area. I mean, in the Aleutians, you walk from one end of this room to the other and you fall off the edge. And literally it's so the habitat, if you will, for fishing is considerably smaller, but you start to, by percentage, it's considerably less bycatch.
All right, another question. Another subject. Can you talk a little bit more about this moving fish all over the place, how that works and what triggers it? I didn't understand what you meant. Moving the halibut quota, basically.
4B.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we
just between areas of
between areas, right? When you consider, all the science and stuff that we currently have in this process, right? We, many of us in some area 3 and certainly in area 4, when we leave fish in the water, people look at that as a surplus to maybe fund other areas for economic reasons and other reasons, right? And I understand that these fish do have tails and they are moving, right? But we have so little, and I'm speaking specifically for 4B, but we have so little scientific data when it comes down to that particular fish out there, that I think it's incredibly irresponsible as policy and managers of that resource to be moving it around like it's a deck of cards on the table. Now, that's why we've been pushing. We're willing to live. If we take a huge slice after we have a huge cut in area 4B because of we got some new science. We just want the science done. We're willing to live with that. We're really concerned about what we believe is irresponsible shifting of fish because we're leaving it in the water out there because there's no fish plant. We just don't think it's responsible to shift it. And I'm specifically talking about Area 4B in this particular case. We've left it in the water because we haven't had a plant out there in 5 years. One of my jobs is to actually rebuild that and get a plant out there. And I can tell you that those conversations are actually pretty encouraging at this point. And I think by 2027, we have a fish plant out there, and that 1 million pounds of fish will be hitting the shelves the same as many of yours.
So you think fish is being moved around from 3 to 4 in different areas without, not science-based, just based on based on what then? Politics?
Well, that's why I think what I said early on was, I think it's some of it's a perception that this is considered a single stock in Area 4, right?
Right.
We're of the opinion that it's a separate stock. We do the same thing with black cod and whatnot. I think there has been some science that actually shows that it's one stock from freaking the Aleutian Islands all the way down to Washington, Oregon. But, from my perspective, that is not necessarily a reason, because we manage in sub-districts, right? It's not, in my opinion, it's not a reason to be okay with moving from one area to the other just because we're banking our fish.
Okay, yeah. That's my question. Thank you, John.
Well, I'm really happy I was able to answer it. That was not sure at times how well I'm doing. You guys still love me?
Thank Johns. I have a couple of comments real quick. I'm glad that Bruce, you raised that question. And for John, one of the topics we've been discussing at length here is the FIS and supporting the FIS and, building back the robustness of that, survey, and how important, how critical it is to managing this resource. And so I just want you to know that it's important to the PAB as well, and that we are making commentary to support that. And to the trawl issue, my comment, the trawl fleet, this is my personal opinion, comment that the trawl fleet hangs its hat on the percentage of bycatch in proportion to its targeted harvest at 1%. Hey, we're the cleanest fishery in the world. I don't know what you guys are talking about. We hear that over and over again. But when you when you think about the fact that they're removing 3 billion pounds of resource out of the water, that that bycatch number gets pretty big, and it has a huge impact on the resource coastwide, I think. So continuing to challenge that 1% number really doesn't mean anything when it comes to protecting the resource is important. Thanks.
I hear that during public testimony quite often, right? Numbers versus percentages, and you're primarily talking about the pollock fishery in this particular case, and the data that we have in front of us. And so here's the this chum bycatch issue came up for multiples of reasons, but then you have the lack of resource on a couple of our river systems, of which we share with Canada, at least one of our river systems in the Yukon. But what we have in front of us, and it's primarily the bee season that chum get caught in the pollock trawl fishery, right? But if you take the 2003 numbers, and we have scientific data now with DNA testing and genetics and whatnot of where these salmon are coming from, and the council's focus is on Western Alaska chum salmon in terms of this bycatch. Not to say that your chums are not important. This is the action the direction that the council has taken. But if you take the 2003 numbers, for Western Alaska chum salmon, of which that's what we're addressing at the council, that was 4,000 fish, and we're missing millions. And my caution my caution has always been this is, hey, it may be the low hanging fruit and maybe the easiest place to address in terms of chum salmon bycatch. And this is just one example I'm using to try to illustrate some of the complexities and stuff that we're dealing with. It isn't to say that we're not taking this seriously, Mr. Chairman. I think what the fact is that, in 2023, it was 4,000 and some animals that were taken out of the water by the trawl fleet. And my concern as a guy that likes to look a little farther down the road is hey, we put 99% of our energy into this particular issue, and what are we missing here? We're missing a heck of a lot of fish, and those 4,000 fish ain't fixing the problem. So that's just a little personal comment in terms of how I look at life, just for your benefit. But I do appreciate you guys looking after the resources, but because I've always believed that we need to have healthy processors, because who am I going to deliver to if I don't have a healthy processor, right? So I'm always an advocate for that. So appreciate you guys' effort here. And oh, by the way, back in my early days in the halibut industry here, I was working for a CDQ group called APICTA, and I used to get to sit in on this body, right? I used to get to sit here, and I can tell you this, it's a hell of a lot more fun over here than over there.
Well, I can appreciate that. Flip side, I've served on the conference board in years past, so yeah, this is a lot nicer environment at times, most of the time anyway. So thanks.
Yeah, we're a barrel of laughs over here.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to leave a few cards here. And if nothing else, if you guys don't get one, and I'm always open for any comment and discussion on quite frankly, anything. So there's some cards. It's got my cell phone number. It's got an email on it. And if you don't get a card and you want to reach out to me, you can always bug Heather. She knows how.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Look forward to some further discussions. Okay. I think that I've asked Joseph to call up bring up the mortality tool to use as we move into the next conversation. So back to catch limits. I think that we have some proposals ready to make for discussion. So Carl, go ahead.
I'll make a proposal. Status quo.
Second.
Thank you.
Do we
Guess
need
we
to
better-
make that as a motion?
It's a motion, yeah. And I think we should probably vote on this.
I think just, looking at the science and sort of where the fishery kind of shook out at the end of the season last year, there were some areas that caught the fish that was allocated to them and other areas that left fish swimming. So it kind of indirectly took a cut with how it ended up shaking out. So going forward, if into this next season, if the same situation happens, then there's fish left in the water. And then if the quota gets fully caught, then we can look at it and say, it was the right move or wrong move. And then we can look at it from there. If further reductions need to be made or increases need to be made. But right now there was a lot of fish that was left in the water that wasn't caught that, is going to be left swimming to catch this year.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor and a second. So we'll go to a vote.
Does everybody have their clickers there? Can you double check that you have your clicker? We had a situation where somebody had the wrong one, so double check. Check on the side. You have the right one. You actually have the wrong one.
Can staff let us know when the vote is open? Thank you. While we're doing this, if we could call Ian up to the table to help us with further conversation. Dr. Stewart, good morning. Peggy.
Morning, Ian. Thanks for coming. Can you tell us where we can find the status quo on the materials that are on the website?
I can. Presentation 12.
Thank
or
you.
Paper 12. One of the last few slides has a table with all of the adopted TCUIs from recent years. I'll get you the slide number in a second.
Okay, voting is open, folks.
It's slide 12 in that presentation.
Okay, everybody's hit their clicker. We've all voted. So we're showing 14 in favor, 1 no, 1 abstention. Motion carries.
There's an additional abstention from Peggy, not.
Oh, okay. So 2 abstentions. Thank you. Yeah, Peggy's clicker was not working. A clicker issue. Okay, thank you. Joseph, can you call up the projection tool now, please? And Ian, you may be able to help with this. We tried to use this yesterday and we were struggling to get it to function.
We're going to show the breakdown by country first.
Okay. Heather?
You haven't asked for any additional motions, but I'm assuming you're open to additional motions.
I am. I was going to lead out with just sort of a preface going forward that there's been some discussion as our Canadian counterparts are aware, about the status of the national standard and where we stand and where the conference board is at, and what the current feeling of the U.S. delegation on the PAB stands. So go ahead, Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the PAB recommend to the commission that they consider the motion passed by the conference board in their deliberations, that they consider the motion made by the conference board, the American motion made by the conference board, that keeps all areas at status quo except for 2B, and the motion was to reduce 2B by 13%. And if I may, I can speak to that.
Yes.
But that's the context of the motion.
I'd just make a comment to it, like, why are we bringing conference board politics into the PAB? Like, we should be separate.
Mr. Chairman,
If you have a US delegation side, then that's one thing, but to recommend the conference board.
I'm sorry, that's my motion.
Okay.
And I'd like to see if there's a second, and I will speak to it.
I'm curious if anybody can read that motion from the conference board.
I have it in front of me. So if there's a second, I can speak to the motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. So I have it here in front of me. I don't know how to get it to our person with the controls here, but he may have it. I don't know if you have it.
Did you send it?
I have not sent it. You and I talked earlier about you having access to that and getting access to it.
We're waiting. Peggy, you have a comment?
No, just let me
Okay.
finish. I'd like to speak to it. So particularly the comment that you made. It's not so much the conference board motion. It's the U.S. position of the conference board. And so the position of the group that I work for and that I represent here is the same as that position. And so I'm putting it forward as a position that we feel pretty strongly about in the Bering Sea, at least my group does. And I think a lot of the American delegation feels strongly about. In discussions with the chairman over the last day or so, we talked about not wanting to have the fight here amongst colleagues at this table that I think they may have had over there in the conference board. But the fact remains is that the American position coming into this meeting is embodied in this motion. So it's not conference board politics. It's politics for sure. It's fish politics. But I think that the position of the American delegation on the conference board is quite similar to the position of some of the folks here representing the U.S. side. So just to make that clear, I'm not trying to accept something from the conference board. I'm just pointing out that the American position there was such that they believed that it was important to begin the process, at least, of apportionment, adjustment between the two countries. That the share that Canada has been asking for and getting of the coastwide stock has exceeded what is in Canadian waters based on the science of the surveys and the stock assessment. So it has long been a bone of contention, as you know, between the US and Canada, and it remains a bone of contention because everybody's affected by it. 2C perhaps more than other areas, but in general, the US areas are forced by the by these circumstances to work with less fish, fewer fish. And so the motion that was made at the conference board indicated that this is not a transfer of upping the US shares in the US areas. It's just simply a matter of reducing the Canadian share for the above reasons. And so it's not a zero-sum game where it just goes to the American side. It stays in the water. The fish stay in the water. And that was the intent of the motion. It was a good one. And I think what I'm asking for with this motion is for the commissioners to take it seriously and to consider it in their deliberations. Didn't want to have the big food fight here. So that's what we came up with, a sort of a compromise solution. I hope that helps.
Carl.
But if I look back on the last vote that just happened, my motion passed, which was status quo TCUI. So shouldn't you voted against it then and had your comment in?
Well, it does seem like a contradiction, and we talked about that.
Right.
But it was just something that we came up with to recognize that there is this position on the US side that's pretty strongly held, and it was embodied in the conference board motion, and we would like the commissioners to take that under consideration. So.
Go ahead, Bruce.
I think, Nick, you wanted to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. Thanks, Bruce. So, I mean, clearly this is a political issue. Let's not be intellectually dishonest and say this is for conservation. This is to stick it to Canada. Like, that's the only way I can see this. You know, if you guys are proposing that Canada 2B takes the only cut, I cannot see how you can, with any scientific honesty, defend that position when, one, Canada has been the only region that consistently catches its share of fish commercially. You know, we've used this term apportionment, which, I mean, again, this kind of seems to resurface every few years when, for whatever reason, you know, tensions get high, political tensions get high. You know, Canada's never agreed to it. Like, the whole apportionment thing is kind of a fictional, magical number that people, you know, your science presumes that is in Canadian waters, which has never been accepted. If you look back onto like a 50-year history, Canada's always seemed to take around 18% of the TCUI, which, you know, again, if you look at the long-term history, and I think it's a very sustainable fishery, although we do have some biological situations where, you know, low size at age, different things like that. Like, the stock is trending downward, but not to Canadian fault. So again, like, this seems like it's purely political, just to punish Canada because that's what you guys want to do. And it's rather disappointing. You know, Mark educated me earlier today that this treaty actually means quite a bit to the Canadian delegation. Like, it was the very first treaty that Canada signed as an independent nation, separate from Britain, in 1923. And to me, that actually is meaningful, and it has a lot of historical significance. And I think it's pretty cool that we can all come to do this. And it seems antagonistic when, you know, when you guys propose this motion where Canada is the only country taking a cut. It doesn't have anything to do with science. So let's be intellectually honest. Let's call it what it is. And, you know, we can vote on it. It seems like it's going to go against country lines, but it just seems like this group has always been more than just, you know, Canada versus the US. We've always kind of seemed to have the same incentives. We all want, you know, what's best for the resource. And I'll just leave it at that.
Bruce?
Devin, if I could?
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Response. Thank you. I that's well said, heartfelt. I understand your position. Our position is slightly different, at least the position that the people I work for hold. And so it's not just politics, though it translates into politics around these tables. It's a question of whether it's a question of accepting the idea of apportionment of the coastwide stock. And it's been again, a bone of contention for a long time, as you point out, that the US does and the Canadians don't. And so we continue to believe that, particularly in these times when a lot of the surveys are declining, including the survey in 2B, that it sort of points out that we need to live by the science and use that as a tool. And so it's not to hurt Canada. It's to try to even the playing field. And what the motion did across the hall was, if Canada was to be brought down to the percentage of the biomass that's in Canadian waters, it would require a 27% cut to the Canadian quota, but which is not that much more than what some of the folks in the US took last year. But what was proposed over there was that Area 2B take half of that cut, a 13% cut, which would bring the Canadian harvest down, or the potential harvest down to 16.3% of the coastwide total, which is still 3% higher than the highest percentage of the over 32 stock ever modeled for Canadian waters. And so it's not anything but responding to the scientific data that is discovered in the surveys and stock assessments. And so that's the rationale for that. And we simply are saying, hey, commissioners, take notice of that, because we see some merit in that approach. So that's the reason for the motion.
Responding.
You want to jump in first and then?
Sure. You bet. I actually like that you separated this motion from the, we all agreed on status quo, and I guess maybe I'm not describing it right, but it's recommendation of the commissioners to consider it in their deliberations. So that's all good. I think they're not going to agree. I'm just going to guess they're probably not going to agree. And when they don't agree, it defaults to status quo, and that's probably where we're at. So this is kind of I view this as kind of a shot across the bow that we're going to go back and start looking at this apportionment, right? And apportionment really means over 32 stock distribution, right? And there's all kinds of papers been written and policies been written that TCEU distribution does not necessarily follow stock distribution modeling, and that there's economic considerations. I don't think we've ranged very far from 18% since 1994. I mean, what we've all done is run back and brush up on 50 cents worth of data on science and history in the last 12 hours, right? And that's what we're all regurgitating now. But this is kind of a shot across the bow that it's going to be a robust debate next year. And if you are going to continue with that argument, the argument really is you're going to abandon the historical considerations for TCEU distribution and go to science-based distribution 100%. But the over 32 stock distribution modeling is old, and there was a reason. I can't get into the history. I've got papers beside me. I've been listening to it all morning and all night last night. There's lots of reasons why we don't follow that model. And there's a time coming when we're going to get into this, I guess, and it's not right now.
Mr. Chairman, could we ask Ian to not comment on the motion, but just to explain a little bit about the history of how this apportionment question has evolved, I guess, because I'm a little unclear on that myself. I'm just reflecting the American position here, and so I wouldn't mind having a little 101 on that subject, if we have time.
I think it's important to have that discussion. I'm not sure if Ian's prepared to be the one to answer that or not.
There's a lot of history on apportionment and harvest rates and harvest policy. And I guess it would be helpful to have some specific questions to lead that off, because I could literally talk all day to give you the full history of all the various facets of that topic that have evolved basically since 2006. So I'm a little reluctant to just launch in and try to pick highlights. I guess that would be the biggest highlight, is that we had a coast-wide stock assessment until 2006, and we knew there was bias in the assessment, so it would turned into we had area-specific assessments until 2006. We knew there was bias in those, and that's a proven thing across stock assessments. When you have a population that's not closed and you try to assess it on its own, then we switched to a coast-wide model, and that necessitated some way to estimate the distribution of biomass. And since that time, we've done that via the survey distribution, and that has been combined with a harvest rate, a relative harvest rate for each area that was selected a long time ago. Those have been 0.75 in the west and 1.0 in the east over many years when they were used. And then in recent years, the commission has not had a stated policy on using those methods. And that's why I didn't have a default distribution to present to you this year, because the commission has not had a default distribution policy in the current harvest strategy policy. That's my best shot at a 2-minute summary.
Thank you, Ian.
I have a question, specific. What does that mean, a default? Can you speak to what?
Sorry,
that
maybe
means?
that's the wrong term. A reference would be the equivalent. We have a reference SPR in the harvest strategy policy, which is at 43% selected through the MSE process and adopted by the commission as part of the harvest strategy policy. There is a potential that we could have a reference distribution as well that would serve as the starting point for the discussion, but that's not currently included in the harvest strategy policy.
Yeah. Okay. So there's various ways to distribute catch or quota, essentially. One of them is based on survey information that tells you how much of the stock is in each area, right? And what are the other ways of determining how much should be taken out of each area?
So the commission has used a variety of methods over the years, including just making adjustments from the status quo, but also including using the survey distribution of O32 fish in tandem with relative harvest rates. So to my knowledge, the commission has never used the survey distribution on its own, but has always applied relative harvest rates. And that's the use of relative harvest rates is something that the MSE process began to evaluate several years ago now, but that was put on hold to focus on coast-wide topics. And so to my understanding, we don't have any definitive results or recommendations from the MSE process on a reference level of distribution. But that method of using either direct survey or harvest rates is a commonly applied method across fisheries.
Okay, and the harvest rate, you mean the 0.75 in the west and the 1 in the rest of the okay. Yeah, and yeah, we actually in 4CDE asked several years ago that be looked at. Can you describe what the harvest rate calculation is based on? Quickly, briefly, I mean.
The historical rate?
Yeah, why, how did you determine whether it should be 0.75 or 1 in the various areas?
Thank you. Go ahead and continue. Yeah. So those harvest rates actually predate me at the commission. They were developed in the early 2000s based on a couple of things, and we've written this up, but it's been several years. They were based on increased uncertainty in western areas and lower growth rates of individual fish. So essentially a yield per recruit on a per fish basis. Would it make sense to harvest more heavily or less heavily in the West? I believe Alan, Dr. Hicks revisited that analysis several years ago, and actually found that in some areas there was still some support for reduced yield per recruit, therefore potentially considering only biological considerations, lower harvest rate, at least in 4B, but I believe it was either a different result or inconclusive in Region 4 with regard to whether there was still support for a relative harvest rate of 0.75.
Then the final consideration is socioeconomic issues that the commission can use to determine whether they can deviate from, the sort of more scientific distribution information. Right? I mean, that's not a question for you, but that is one of the other ways that the commission can determine the area-specific quotas. Is that right?
Yes, the commission has always had and used the ability to adjust both the coastwide TCEYs and the area TCEYs.
Thank you. And then other methods, is that kind of the suite of information that is used?
To my knowledge, since the beginning of use of a coastwide assessment, those are the methods that have been used by the commission.
Thank you, Dr. Stewart. Bruce, any comments, questions? No? Nick?
I find it ironic that, with such an uncertain science and all the research that we do, and we there's admittedly, that Dr. Stewart and Dr. Hicks and everybody on the IPHC team has all agreed there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot that we don't know. But I do find it ironic how the one thing you're certain on is how much fish is in the water in 2B, and that we're taking more than that's there. So that's just a comment that I wanted to put out there. Thought that was interesting. So,
Peggy?
So I started with Hannah in 2005. So I was here when that shift from coastwide from regulatory area to coastwide happened. And I remember the earthquake, the tremors that caused in Canada. And they were extremely clear at the time that was not acceptable. And they maintained that position all these years. I had thought until, I don't know, this year that we stand on this because it's been the way it is for so long. Didn't hold that much water, but I think looking at the position and considering the socioeconomic situation that Canada has been in, that does carry some weight. So if we look at the socioeconomics of our two countries right now, I would have to agree with Bruce, this is not the time. There may come a time in the future to revisit all of this, but I don't think this is the year.
Yeah, thanks, Peggy. That's good. It's a shame for sure. I mean, it seems like possibly your political climate is to go around blowing up agreements that are all over the place right now, and I hope we're not going to digress into that. I guess it's disappointing. I guess that's my only comment on it. It'll go to the commissioners. I guess if we want to have a robust debate on the merits of our policies, this is just sort of the opening salvo of that. And I do appreciate that you separated it from our voting for status quo. And I guess it's just a bit of foreboding, but it's disappointing that didn't come here ready for this fight this year, really, but we will be ready next time. It's too bad.
Any other comments, conversations around this motion? Go ahead.
You know, I guess I hear the discussion around the table, and I think some good points have been made. It's clearly a really sensitive issue, and to me, that seems to be more reason that we should be talking about it. I mean, we all agree that this year status quo. I mean, I guess I can't speak for everybody, but that seems to make sense. But the fact that we tiptoe around this issue, or maybe we don't, but I think it needs to be addressed, and hopefully in the future we can come to something that we can all be at least live with. I don't think it should be so contentious, but you know, I get it. I mean, what would happen if the roles were reversed? What would the opinions be?
Thanks. I think that there's big blocks of fish being moved all over the place between your regulatory areas, and just conveniently, that's all been put aside for today and just focused on 2B. So that's kind of what made it a little bit more contentious. That's all, just to frame the discussion.
Historically, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. I suppose as chair, I should probably speak a little bit about my position on this as well as the board. I mean, I think on the U.S. delegation, there was no, per your comment, Nick, there's no intent here to, like you framed as sticking to the Canadian side. I mean, I consider you all, you know, friends, you know, and we've worked well together in my time here, and I don't want to put that in any kind of risk. But there's difficult decisions to be made sometimes at these meetings, and this is a tough one. I think that all of us on the U.S. side feel like, you know, the uncertainty that you bring up, we all feel that on both sides of the table in the science. To me, that means that precludes that we be more cautionary on removals. And that should be based on biological distribution. And I think that everybody should be operating from the same basis. And, you know, there's a lot of complicated conversation that goes into that, and that's pretty simplistic, but that's my stance. So I don't, you know, it's difficult, and I appreciate it. Nobody likes to take a cut, especially in this, you know, in these very lean years of availability of the resource. We're all feeling the pain. So I would look around the table to see if there's any more commentary, and if not, we have a motion and a second. We'll take it to a vote. I guess I would just highlight, I think everybody understands it, but this is just regarding a recommendation that the commissioners discuss this and consider it. And it's not a recommendation from the U.S. side that we change the mortality limit this year.
Mr. Chairman, just a closing comment. You know, as you know, the U.S. side had a little caucus before we came back to the table, and there was universal approval of this approach. And so I'm hoping that there still is. It is a shot across the bow, Bruce. You're right, because it's been, again, contentious over these years. There's been no tools to address this other than, you know, a standoff at the commissioner level, 3-3 kind of, you know, and there hasn't perhaps been the kind of focus on it from a scientific perspective that there should be. I don't know. I just, all I know is that Americans and the Canadians have different views on whether the biological distribution should be the measure that we follow. And I think that's a legitimate disagreement. But it's there and it still is. And what we're saying with this statement is, hey, let's look at that again if we need to. Let's not just keep going down this path that we haven't really approved of all these years. So that's all.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure I agree with that. I think that the stock distribution and stock migratory models have been just as fractious as the political climate as well. So we'll get a chance to talk about all of that stuff. But, we've had Dr. Sean Cox and some of the others, I remember Adam Kaiser was involved in this. It's been a little bit more, like you said, for the last 2 or 3 years, but I think the debate over the stock distribution, I mean, I've got a paper in front of me written in 2018, right? So it's not just one or the other. We're not agreeing on more than just the level that you just said, Heather. It's fine.
Thank you, Bruce. Okay, we take it to a vote. Voting is open. Sorry.
I'm abstaining again.
Thank you. Okay. Everybody's in. Voting is closed. The records show 9 in favor, 5 opposed, 2 abstentions. Joseph, can we go back to the last page we had up
Yeah,
there?
kind of show
Okay, yes.
first. So you're going to go back to the projection tool?
Mhm. Ian, we asked for you to come up here to show us what the distributions would look like using this projection, using this model as a projection. I think that it's already up there with the vote that we had right here. Is that accurate? That's what, going forward, this is not for this year, but going forward with the cut, those would be the numbers.
So you just want to verify that this matches the CB
Yes.
table? Yes, that's the same as the CB, the US CB recommendation.
Okay, can we share what the status quo number is, so the actual distribution for this coming season?
545.
Yeah, would you like just the TCEYs, or would you like the full allocation table? Because we could do either with the mortality projection tool. We can provide, you'll have as an appendix to your report that full table, but if you'd like to see it now, we can easily put those TCEYs in.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessary, just the.
Okay. So then the slide in paper presentation 12, this presentation, the next, might even be the next slide. One more. Yes, the bottom row here is the status quo TCEYs from 2025. So those would be the values.
All right, thanks. Nick?
Yeah, I'm confused. So we had a vote to do status quo, which passed unanimously, I think with minus a
Correct.
couple of abstentions. And then we just had another vote for status quo, but to be minus 13%.
No, that vote is to recommend that the commissioners consider the, yes,
Okay. So we've all voted and agreed on status quo.
status quo.
Yes,
But now then you guys put forward a motion to consider what the conference board did.
for the commissioners to seriously consider what's embodied in that, yes.
Okay.
But it doesn't change the vote that we took
Right.
earlier.
We should bring John back in here and explain how the stock distribution model is going to affect his life if it comes through.
Mueller?
He might.
Peggy?
I think the only way to deal with this is just to say what happened. We had two motions. The motion for the TCEY was super clear. This was the vote. I think there was only one no on that, so I suppose that deserves a minority report to cover our bases and be 100% transparent. The second vote was only we are asking the commissioners, all the commissioners, to look at what the CB did, the US portion of the CB, and that was not quite the same vote as before. So that definitely deserves a minority report, I would say.
This is what the CB has. The CB noted the failed motion from USA on TCU and That's a failed motion.
That is strange.
This did not pass. The CB.
It's just saying we're unanimous-ish. Isn't that what it says?
So it did not pass. But it was the motion. It was the US recommended.
Dr. Wilson is here. Wanted to speak about the FIS plan going forward and some, discussing financial opportunities. Looking for some input from the PAB on the path forward, which he hasn't been privy to the motion that we just developed. So have him come up and talk through that. Good morning, Dave.
Cheers. Good morning, Chair. Thank you. If I may, then there really is a couple of topics that we could talk through. I know you're somewhat pressed for time. May I just ask, do you have much left on your agenda to get through?
I think we're about done.
You are? Okay. I'll just take a little bit more time then. So the two main things I wanted to talk to you about were, first of all, that information paper 05 from the Commission, and I think you've dealt with that. So again, thank you very much. I think that's a good outcome for all. As part of that, there was also a request or an indication that the Commission would like a little bit more feedback, whether it's now or just in the margins over the next day, about other ways to potentially come up with some additional cost savings or efficiencies for the PAB and Conference Board. And so I'll just leave that as sort of an open item if you do have any other suggestions. We have secured our meeting for next year in Canada, but obviously in 2 years we're going to be back in the US. And that's where any real impacts would be had as we negotiate a new contract with a new vendor to house the meeting. We are currently interested in potentially going to Sitka, but it would also have a lot of impact from what this group and the Conference Board would be prepared to accept in terms of your footprint, in terms of your meeting room footprint, how much time you need. And so again, I don't necessarily want to take up time at this point, unless you really have some strong ideas about whether you only want to have the meeting for 1 day or you're enjoying the 1.5 day format. But if you could just sort of have a think about that and then provide additional feedback, that would be useful. And then the second was particularly about the Fishery Independent Setline Survey. And you saw the presentation on the first morning from the Finance and Administration Committee, where they are and have now managed to have the Commission agree to a $4 million reserve for the FIS. And that's really to ensure that we can operate over at least a 2-year period for the base block design. The Secretariat and the Commission has gone through an iterative process over the last couple of years. I think 2023 was when the Commission initially suggested a whole range of options for the Secretariat to investigate. I understand you have had some discussions about potentially new ideas to come up with ways to offset costs or to make the FIS more profitable or more efficient. And I'm really curious to see if you have any questions for us that we could potentially provide clarification of what we have done, or if you have other items. I think Keith, I haven't seen Keith at the meeting. Is he?
He's here. He's down at the end.
There you are, Keith. Keith's been great in interacting with us, and I think Kayla's probably shared some of those interactions over the last year in trying to find ways to make the FIS more efficient. But I just wanted to pause and see if there is anything additional you'd like to share or guide us with. Thanks, Chair.
Heather,
Should we put the motion on the screen?
it's here.
Okay, sorry, I can't see. That's right there.
So to address the first point, we did talk about, the cost savings potentials as far as the actual meetings go. And one of the things that we discussed, and I think that we were all in agreement, is leaning more towards the staff presentations and the virtual aspect. We could possibly shave some time off, maybe a day off of the meetings by not having in-house staff presentations. And I think we all feel pretty good about the opportunity to attend those virtually and that is sufficient. I mean, people have the opportunity to go through that twice. I did if they want to see the presentation for the conference board and for the PAB. So if you missed something the first go around, you can listen to it again. I think we all feel like that's probably sufficient. And I'd look to the board to see if anybody had any follow-up on that, but I think we were all in agreement that that was jumped out at us as probably the very top thing that we could do to maybe do some cost savings. Shortening the PAB time at the meeting, I think that's probably pretty challenging. We are in our second day of this, and we're not going to have any problem being done on schedule, but it does feel a bit pressed to me. A day and a half. So I'm okay with a day and a half, but I don't think that I would want to make it any shorter. Any comments from the board? I like the Sitka idea.
Really?
Funny, huh?
Yeah, that's a good one.
We do have a pretty nice facility for that up there in the Centennial Hall, Harrigan Centennial Hall. It's pretty good size, it's a nice facility, has lots of room, so. Okay. We had a lot of discussion around the FIS design and some suggestions, and this is a proposal that we're going to submit to the commission on those ideas. So I'll just let you read through it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. In particular, if I focus on point one there to start with, we have tasked within the Secretariat to put together the base block design for 2027. So you're going to see that on Thursday. That will obviously encapsulate our key data needs, avoiding that bias, and we'll also put together the total expenses and income that we're expecting from that survey design. And that's only possible because of these additional funds that are coming in from the US and Canada at this point in time. So very much support option one there, and you'll hear a little bit about that on Thursday morning when the Secretariat represents. So. Not familiar with the Chatham Strait. Is there a little bit of context?
In Chatham Strait, I can speak to that. I participated. The Chatham Strait blackcod fishery is a state-operated fishery. In the past, they're not doing it presently, and I called and asked the manager about why that's happening. So they, in the past, have provided the opportunity to conduct a survey. They charter out to fishing vessels to conduct a survey, similar to what we do here. But they allowed the opportunity to combine those trips to harvest their permits, their own personal fish at the same time that they were conducting the survey. They had the state provides gear. Operations a lot similar to what we do, and they put a couple of observers on the boat, and I think they charter 4 or 5 boats for that fishery and fish stations, very similar to the halibut survey program. But the opportunity and the fishermen bid on that. There's a bid. Basically the state's looking for who will do it the cheapest. But there is a bid, so there's a competitive process there. But allowing those boats to harvest their own fish while they're conducting the survey, and wondering if that could possibly fit into the FIS design.
Okay, great. Thank you. That helps a great deal. Yeah. And then the third one there, there's something we could certainly trial. I think I'm sure the team has probably already provided some indication that we've been looking at different bait types through various trials, and so yes, the dark chum idea is certainly something we could look into. Yeah. Thank you. freezer longliner. I know we've certainly had some investigation of that in the past, and it's been quite expensive. Again, Kayla's probably already covered this, but if there are new options for freezer longliners, then that could certainly start to play back into the equation. And then Keith's been quite helpful with number 5 there in particular, and looking at fundraising efforts and different ideas. So that's great. Perfect. And that would fall into number 6 as well, as trying to get that sort of ad hoc group of interested parties. It's been quite challenging to line up Keith's schedule at various times and secretariat. And so if you could have a broader group of interested people who would be interested in trying to come up with sort of out of the box ideas, that'd be very useful. So no, I appreciate that recommendation.
Okay, one of the things, number 5, that was part of the discussion, and we did not take a vote or set a path forward, but the comment was raised that maybe the PAB as a group could look at providing funding for a hire of somebody to identify fundraising.
Yeah, thank you. As you started to talk there, I was starting to worry about conflict of interest, but that would actually be ideal if you were able to hire sort of an independent third party to come in and really lobby for us and look at those options. That could be, yeah, very useful. So I appreciate that as well. Thank you.
Bruce?
No, I think the key word is investigate. It's at 40,000 feet right now. We need a lot of data from we need a lot of data from the IPHC staff and have to do a little bit more questions in the field. Cost analysis, fuel time thing. It's really 40,000 foot blush right now, David. The only thing that really spurred the idea was that I think the FAS halibut market would be competitive with the fresh. Historically, the fresh market's been the king in the marketing, but I think they're probably on par right now. Plus, you could move the fish at the end of it down to the lower 48 somehow and get a lot better price for it than some of the remote locations, especially out west.
I think all of the processors would like to have a freezer full of halibut right now.
Yeah, you bet. No, yeah.
Anything else for us?
Not in particular, but if you have a question on anything else at all, certainly available to take it now or in the margins. If not, I can leave you to wrap your meeting up. Thank you, Chairs.
People were talking, the staff was talking about, and people were asking questions about how you estimated the potential price of halibut for this coming season. There was questions about that. I just want to speak to that.
Sure, thank you. Through the chair. Yeah, so we took a somewhat of a conservative approach, and we try and do that every year, both in terms of our expectations of catch, but then also in terms of fish price. I think the first round of fish estimations, we actually went down to about 15% of a reduction. We've brought that back, and I think it's 10% in the latest calculations. We are hearing very clearly that there's confidence that the price will not go down, and I hope that's the case. But for the slides that you're going to see on Thursday morning, for example, we're going to present you for 2027 what a base block design would look like at a 10% reduction, but then also at a zero change from current prices. And that is just as one example for the base block, changes the price by several $100,000. There's a great deal of uncertainty in terms of the catch rates though as well, and also in terms of the vessel bids and fuel prices and the like. And so given that we are not flush with cash in terms of the reserve for the Fishery Independent Set Line Survey, we are going to try and maintain that more conservative approach in calculations. And so putting those numbers forward as we expect a 10% decline in fish prices, it just gives us that safety buffer, because if we don't and it goes down, there's some very significant implications for the Secretariat. So that's why it's just essentially taking that conservative approach. But as I said on Thursday, I keep saying Friday because I expect a Friday meeting, you're going to see them for 2027 with 10% reduction and then also 0% from current prices. And they will be updated again next year. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Yes, I do have a question when I think about it that you might be able to speak to. The announcement coming in the meeting that we are going to be getting some greatly appreciated increased funding from Canada, and what you think where the direction that money might be going, and is there a possibility any of that would be set towards the FIS?
Yeah, thanks again for the question, Chair. Very pleased to say that all of that money is being designated for the FIS. So the 1 million Canadian, so 720,000 that was flagged at the FAC from Canada was specifically slated for the Fishery Independent Setline Survey Reserve, and the 1 million US, which was committed on Monday, also during the presentation of the FAC report from Canada. They've since provided clarification that there's very specifically for the FIS and not for general operations. And so that 1.72 million US dollars will be invoiced and hopefully received in the coming months. Too late for this financial year, but it does mean that we've been able to, for example, undertake the additional survey stations in Goose Island this year, knowing that that money's coming. So drawing down our existing FIS reserve, knowing that Canada has committed to providing that 1.72. What that's going to look like for 2027, I think that'll play into the presentation on Thursday, where we'll see what that base block design will look like and cost. At the moment, I'm going to preempt those numbers. I think it was around a $1.2 million loss for the full base block design in 2027, with a decrease in prices of 10%. If we incorporate that at current prices, I think it's about $900,000 loss. And so if we're receiving 1.72 million from Canada, US dollars from Canada, plus the $712,000 that rolled over as surplus from 25 to 26, it places us in a really good position, particularly if fish prices do stay as they are and were in 2025, hopefully increase a little bit, that we'll be able to move towards that full base block design in coming years, starting in 2027. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. That's good news, Dr. Wilson. Appreciate it. Any other questions from Dr. Wilson from the board? Seeing none. Thank you. So the only thing I had left on the agenda, which I think is already, it's been acknowledged by the commission staff, by Secretariat, had to do with consolidating the PAB and the conference board. I think that's dead in the water. It's not going anywhere, so we don't need to dive into that. Peggy.
Don't we want to get our position on the record?
I think we all responded to that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. I think it's been
I
known.
don't think it's on the agenda of this meeting, is it?
It was on the agenda.
Other business, yeah.
Oh.
Why did that do that?
We could just say status quo. We like it the way it is.
Yeah. Okay. Chair would entertain a motion to maintain status quo as far as the arrangement for the PAB and the conference board.
I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Nick seconds.
Nick.
Okay,
Greg.
lots of seconds.
Me.
Fourth, third, fourth. Anybody want to put that?
Is there any opposition to that motion? Seeing none, motion carries unanimously. Okay. Unless there's any other discussion, I think we can adjourn.
We need the adoption. We need to see the report and the adoption.
Okay. Can we, well, hold on. Joseph is calling out. We need to, we need to.
I can show the report.
Okay.
If you give me 5 minutes to clean up the report and we'll see it on screen.
How about 10 minutes? Let's take a 10-minute break and we'll review the report. Okay. Sure. Or both. Yeah. Do you guys have a PAB email
It's more
list?
efficient to do it on the screen, but we can share the documents
That's a no, Carl.
because then we can make edits as we go. You want to start from the very beginning, Chair?
Start from where we started having conversation. We don't have to go through all the
Okay. So,
header.
Presentation, adoption of the agenda, noting. Probably this is probably a section.
Stuart.
Yep.
I'll scroll down. Okay. So this is text that needs to be revised.
I don't know why I'm looking up at the big screen. I got one right in front of me.
Squinting at
Yeah.
the one at the end.
Yeah.
Chair, do you want me to read as we go? I'm happy to do it.
Do we want Joseph to read through this, or are you guys good with just looking at it?
I can read it, but I think I would like to start a little earlier when we actually convened the meeting and did the rolls and then go from there.
Okay, we can back up. I can see how we rate on this panel. I noticed over at the conference board, they all have these big screens right in front of them.
Really?
Yeah, we just get one.
Your little brother.
Chair, let me know when you want me.
Okay, I think you're good. Okay, scroll down. Maybe I would suggest maybe an edit on line B. That it should say Chatham Strait black cod, so people aren't confusing that that's a halibut survey.
Good point.
Mm-hmm. Yep, black cod. Survey, actually. Instead of fishery, just put survey. Thank you. Bruce, do you think that statement about fish taken to market in Vancouver and Seattle, do you think that could create any confusion? I mean, is that like, does it come, could
Yeah.
somebody interpret that as making a statement that that's where the fish needs to go?
I did look at that and I thought, we talked about this many details and this many details and what went in and what went out. You know,
Taken, yeah, taken to,
something to just capture to a higher revenue for
Yeah.
landing port. But it is south. Everyone knows it's south. So what do you think? I don't know.
taken to the best margin opportunity or value.
Higher value.
Yeah, Vancouver and Seattle.
Fish would be taken to the best margin opportunity for higher sales value.
It's kind of saying the same thing twice, but
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right.
not that that's a bad thing.
I think you could take margin out of that sentence.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe insert market, the best market opportunity. Thank you. Keith, you think you want to change E? Make any additions to that?
Thank you. I just texted with AFDF and, everyone, Alaska Fisheries Development Foundation.
Yes.
They are totally willing and able to have a meeting on fundraising for
Very
us
nice.
for the survey. And that's just, so to be heard later, I guess.
Okay. Maybe insert in conjunction with processors on E at the beginning.
At the very beginning?
Yeah. Does that read well?
Yes, it does.
Okay. You can scroll down. Where? Up above says the month.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. I was focusing on what was in the.
Yep.
Those need to be two different. Yeah.
Yep, 6 a.m. for the halibut. The 1,200 hours is for black cod. So for opening on line A,
Can't just put it all in 16. Open March 16th at 6 a.m. I mean, it doesn't matter.
no.
Would it be
So-
acceptable? Oh, go ahead.
Joseph, on 17 on line A on the opening, that should read 0600. Mm-hmm.
6 a.m.
Yes.
Sorry.
No.
0600.
Say that again?
0600. It's okay.
6 a.m. Okay.
There you go. Thank you.
Would it be acceptable to use the day of the week on both of those opening date and closing date? Or do we not bother with that?
I don't think we need that. People can look at the calendar. It is important what day of the week it is, but we will know. Got a fair amount of time to think about it. You would scroll down, please. Okay.
Number 21 actually passed.
Well, we did not because Canada.
Go ahead, Heather.
So didn't somebody just say that in 21 noted the failed motion? I don't understand why it says failed motion.
So Joseph just shared a screen. Maybe, I don't know how hard it is to come back to that, but I guess the vote's there. You know, I'm confused as well.
Well, it's incorrect the way it stands, I think, under 21, isn't it?
It says in favor 9.
I know, I see.
Where did the failed communication come from?
Sorry, I consulted this with Dr. Wilson. He confirmed that this is a failed motion. Canada did not pass it.
Yeah, this was not.
Already went upstairs.
No, it did not.
TSC in all areas except for 2B, that one didn't pass.
I think everything is good about it, but that word failed.
Yeah, that's just incorrect. So, period.
Yes.
We could remove failed, leave the votes as is, and commissioners will note it.
Yeah, it passed.
But
Right, so it would be something like the PAB uh,
Pass the motion for the commission to note.
the PAB noted,
Change it to pass.
yeah.
Mr.
He's got his
Chairman?
hand up. He can go.
Heather?
We also made it a recommendation. We didn't make it a note. It was not noted. The motion said recommend that that the commission consider, et cetera, et cetera.
That would fix it.
If I may, if the recommendation requires that that the motion passed, without a pass, our recommendation cannot be made.
So process-wise, is it necessary for both Canada and the US to pass a motion for the motion to be described as passed?
As recommended, correct.
That's, I did not know that was the process, so that's interesting. I don't
Good.
think that's right, but maybe it is.
Should we just amend the language to say the PAB noted the failed motion proposed by the United States?
It kind of says that already, doesn't it?
Well, I just think there's extra words.
Use your mic, please.
I just think there's extra words in there.
Like
I don't want to get
fail.
hung up on this.
Yeah, I think we are.
Yeah.
Okay, so is the point that we want to note that the Canadian vote failed and the US vote passed?
That's how they do it in the conference board, I believe. In the conference board, they just have the vote for each country and people see it. And so they don't describe it as passed or failed. I don't think, but I could be wrong. I don't know. But we've never done this before that I recall.
Again, the word failed in the first line of 21 can be removed. The vote
Just remove it.
remains.
Just remove
as
it then,
is.
yeah, remove it.
Well, for sure.
Yep.
And then we have some redundancies just to be, make it read better. The motion for the commission to note, I see, the CB motion.
So PAB noted for the commission to note.
Well, we recommended, and that motion failed in the Canadian vote and passed in the US vote to have the commission consider, acknowledge, I can't remember the wording, the CB vote, the CB. Did that motion pass, Heather, in the CB?
Well, this is, to me, this is speaking to the conference board more.
My
Vote.
my understanding is that the Canadians didn't vote for it, but that the US did. But I don't know the numbers. I haven't seen any of that. So I don't know what the vote was. We could probably find out.
So how do you want to phrase this then?
The English.
I think the second note the motion needs to be deleted because it's covered in the first part.
The PAB, my motion was that the PAB recommended that the commissioners note, if you will, the motion that passed on the US side in the conference board. It wasn't a note, it was a recommendation. That was my motion. So we can, I think it was, we can go back to the recording if you want, but it was a recommendation. It wasn't a note. I'm sorry. I don't want to be,
Ticky-tacky.
yeah. It just needs to be right, that's all. I should have written it
Is
down.
23 the last point? Is there more past 23? Does it speak to the same issue?
I think it does.
So maybe there's two different statements to be made?
Mhm.
No?
No, there's no
No.
further mention.
Oh, that's it.
I could, and I should have when I made the motion, but I didn't. But I did use the word recommend, not note.
So
So-
it could say, the PAB noted the motion
That was recommended.
for a recommendation to the commission to, and again, I ask, what's the verb, Heather? Read, acknowledge, consider,
Seriously consider was what I said, I believe.
seriously
I
consider
believe.
the motion proposed by the delegation from the United States of America, or the United States of America delegation of the conference board.
Consider is sufficient.
This is,
PAB noted that we don't want to combine the two boards, but we do want to just vote whatever they
I
say
know, me too.
on our own.
Those dates are gonna be gone.
There was recommended language discussed between Dr. Planis and his boss, and which appears here, which is incorrect. So I would like it to go back to what the motion was. And if we need to listen to the recording and I'm off a little bit, then we should listen to the recording. And I'd be fine to do that.
If I may interject, the motion was for the commission to note the motion. So I think the text that is under that line is correct. There was a motion that was presented to the commission, for the commission to note the motion that was proposed by the United States delegation to the conference board. So it's noting that motion, the notion that was made by the PAB to the commission.
You don't think it captures what we said? I mean, it's a goofy note anyways, but it does capture that's what we said. We note to note.
I think it just sounds awkward, but if it is correct, then it's correct,
I feel like it
right?
is.
Even though it's awkward.
It's awkward.
That's correct too. That's it.
So
Should we
I
move on?
think we go forward with how it's written.
What does the Grand Poobah say?
Okay.
Sorry, you say yes?
Should we emphasize not? Maybe put it in bold? Joseph, on line 3, the beginning, not, can you just put that in bold? Yep. Thank you. Just sort of emphasizes the feeling in the room.
It's not full caps, but it is bold and standard font. Middle.
Okay. That's it. Okay, thank you. That concludes our review. I think our,
We need to, there's a vote required for the adoption.
okay, we need a vote for the adoption of the report. Can somebody make a motion?
I move. So
Okay.
moved.
Need a second?
I'll second.
To capture that? Okay, very good. Thank you, folks.
Good job, Norm.